So, gut. Machen wir hier weiter. Ende Kapitel 12, Kapitel 13. Fangen wir an. Was beim letzten Mal passiert ist, für die Leute, die es nicht mehr ganz genau wissen oder nicht dabei waren oder sowas. Keiichi hat Satoko gefunden im Haus. In ihrem Haus oder im Haus von ihrem Onkel. Die war bewusstlos in der Badewanne mit ganz, ganz heißem Wasser und bla bla bla. Der wollte sie dann zum Krankenhaus bringen. Dort haben sie aber erfahren, dass der Doktor, der Hier, sich umgebracht hat. Dann sind sie weitergelaufen, wollten zu Satokos altem Zuhause, also da, wo sie mit Rika zusammen gewohnt hat, hingehen, damit Satoko sich was anziehen kann, weil die war die ganze Zeit nur in einem Badehandtuch rumgelaufen. Da haben sie gesehen, dass Rika tot ist und vor dem Schrein mit offenem Bauch, aufgeschlitzten, bla bla bla. Dann ist Satoko weggelaufen, weil sie Angst hatte vor Keiichi, weil Keiichi ein Beil bei sich hatte. Das Beil wollte er eigentlich vorher benutzen, um den Onkel von Satoko nochmal umzubringen. Und ja, Keiichi, die beiden haben sich dann nach einer Zeit auf einer Brücke wieder gefunden, haben da ein bisschen diskutiert und Satoko hat dann letztendlich Keiichi von der Brücke geschubst und ja, das war soweit alles. Mehr oder weniger Wichtige, glaube ich. Gut. Machen wir weiter. My head was pounding. The sky was bright. It was cold too. It hurt. Each sensation I felt led to a new and different one awakening. When I came to, I was lying face first on a dry riverbed. A few body parts hurt a lot. The skin over a bunch of my joints was torn, turned blue or red or oozing blood. I could tell it was my bones that were in pain from the agony I felt whenever I moved. I looked up and saw how high the bridge from which I had fallen was. Considering I'd dropped from there, it was a miracle that I could open my eyes again. Right next to me was a broken upside-down car seat, which I guessed some pranksters had brought here. Maybe this thing had been conveniently lying right under me, allowing me to escape instant death. Miraculous. Of course, I didn't know whether this miracle was fortunate or unfortunate. I'd failed to die, and now I was still stuck in this insane world. How long had I been unconscious for? The sun was high in the sky, and it looked like only 1 or 2 hours had passed. But my body's sluggishness didn't make it feel at all like so short a time had gone by. Mentally, it felt like I'd been asleep here for a decade. Ow. The more feeling returned to my body, the more the pain flooded in. It hurt so much, it would have been better not to have woken up. I needed to get to a doctor. Yeah, to Coach's clinic. The term Coach's clinic brought memories back one after another, memories I wish I hadn't recalled. Satoko was no longer on the bridge. She would have returned to Hinamizawa by now. And she would put on some clothes, go to the clinic, get a checkup and report on how crazy I had seemed. The police were waiting for me without a doubt. This time, Would they find out for real that I'd killed her uncle and arrest me, or would they just send me to a mental institution like I thought they might? Still, I didn't care which it was. Please, someone stop all this pain. You can boil me or cook me after that, whatever you want. I began to walk unsteadily, just limping along. I went downstream and then through an animal trail-like path in the woods. I walked haphazardly, searching for a path I knew. Eventually, I finally came across a familiar road and set off towards the clinic. Not to my house, but to the clinic which had treated me like a lunatic. It was hot and humid. There was no wind and the air was stagnant. For a while now, I've been smelling the terrible stench of burnt eggs, and it made my face scrunch up. And then, at last, I noticed something. I couldn't hear any cicadas. It was the first time I'd heard Hinamizawa be so utterly silent. When I thought back, it seemed like birds always chirped in the morning. Cicadas always cried loudly in the afternoon, and Higurashi always rose up in chorus in the evening. Always something to hear. I couldn't hear a single insect. The only thing I could hear was the rustling of the wind brushing the treetops. I'd never experienced this sort of quiet before. Even the only sound coming from the trees lacked life somehow. The trees were yellow and many leaves were spread on the ground, despite it being too early for autumn. Even the weeds that had been growing so persistently at the side of the road had yellowed, browned, and lost their vigor. Only the sunlight itself was of the June Hinamizawa I knew, and yet it seemed like the season had switched all of a sudden. Looking at the fallen leaves and rotting weeds led me to a spot a few small insects turned on their backs. Hello, Queenie. They weren't moving. They were corpses. I looked closer to see insect corpses scattered all around, like a child had collected them as samples and then strewn them around. This stench, what was it? It was terrible, like burnt eggs, combined with all the bug corpses and leaves falling from the trees in summer. Had someone sprayed herbicides or pesticides around here? Even at school, we apparently fumigate, they call it pest disinfection or something, once or twice a year. Artist. Nee, nicht wirklich. Hast nicht viele verpasst. Nur, ja, Keiji ist aufgewacht. Dem geht's ganz böse. Tut alles weh. Also nach dem Fall von der Brücke ist er aufgewacht. Und ist jetzt auf dem Weg zur Klinik, um sich halt, ja, abchecken zu lassen. Und er hat halt gerade gemerkt, dass Hinamizawa ominös leise ist und alle Insekten, die er sieht, sind tot und Blätter von den Bäumen und Wurzeln und bla 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 sind alles so gelb, braun und sieht ein bisschen aus wie Herbst, obwohl es eigentlich Juni ist noch und bla bla bla. Aber ja, mehr hast du eigentlich nicht verpasst. I hadn't run into anybody despite how bright it was outside. It was mid-afternoon, and yet it felt like I was sauntering about at midnight. Well, with this smell, nobody would want to be walking around outside. Ach ja, und es riecht nach verbrannten Eiern oder so. Just what was this, anyway? There was no sound, no noise, not even a breath. Hinamizawa was silent. The school would come into view right after turning this corner, and yet I couldn't hear any commotion at all. None of the shouts or grunts that children always made. It was simply quiet. Just as pretending to ignore the silence had grown intolerable, I saw the school. And finally I heard something. It was the sound of a few trucks. There were a few very tall trucks parked in the schoolyard idling. About 10 workers in raincoats were unloading things from their trucks. It was hot and humid, even in my casual clothing. I couldn't imagine how unbearable that must have been. And then I remembered. Our school was rented from the Forest Service field office building, wasn't it? This is now a Forest Service field office building. It wasn't strange at all for Forest Service trucks to be doing some kind of work in the schoolyard. Besides, what did forest rangers do anyway? I felt bad for them having to work in such heat, and with such a stench around. They were taking a colorful cargo out of the truck and lining it up in the schoolyard. They were containers, fairly large ones, inside multicolored patchwork bags. Heavy, too. They were being carried in pairs. They lined them up very neatly, like tuna at a riverside fish market. Several dozens, hundreds of tuna were completely filling the fairly wide schoolyard up. I forgot my pain for a little while, captivated by this big forest ranger job I'd never seen before. As I stood there, watching in a daze, the people in raincoats working on the other side noticed me. One of them pointed me out and they shouted a few things back and forth. I thought they might yell at me for getting in their way, so I decided to leave post-haste. But then 2 trucks drove up behind me. I stepped aside and they entered the schoolyard. Sheets covered their trunks, but I could tell they were completely full. As they passed, there was an awful smell that made me want to choke. It wasn't the same burnt eggs smell as before, but an even worse one, like rotten crab meat. What on earth was it? I'd been enshrouded in one terrible stench after another all day. Then certain white letters emblazoned on the side of the passing trucks caught my eye. Ground Self-Defense Forces. What? Self-Defense Forces? Like the army? Why wasn't the army in the schoolyard? Hey you! Where did you come from? Suddenly someone slapped me on the shoulders from behind. I turned around and a canopied SDF jeep was parked there. The SDF person had on a green raincoat and a gas mask, like in the movies, carrying a compressed air cylinder. He didn't look normal. There wasn't an inch of exposed skin anywhere. Where did I... Ow! When I tried to talk, I stretched a wound on my head. It made the SDF people exchange glances. I couldn't see their faces through their masks, but they seemed surprised. Do you live in Hinamizawa? Can you tell us your name and address? Well, yeah, I sort of live here. My name is Keiichi Maebara. Oh, and my address, blah blah blah, Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone. After seeing me tell them my name and address without hesitation, one of the SDF people watching from the jeep started talking into a radio. Base, do you read? Base, do you read? We have a 402 survivor discovered. I repeat, we have a 402. We found a survivor. He's in front of the Forest Service office. This is base. We copy. Secure the survivor at once. What is his status? Healthy. Wounded all over, but not fatally. Mein Gott. Fängt wieder an. He can walk on his own. We'll send him to HQ for safety. I was prepared to go along with the police, but the SDF? I couldn't help but think it seemed a little bit much. They urged me into the back of the jeep. And then they told me to put on this gigantic gas mask. I did so, and one of the troops fiddled around with it, strapping it tightly to me. It was heavy, hard to see out of, hot and difficult to breathe. Just looking at the world through the lenses made it lose its sense of reality. My breathing sounded like some giant monster through the mask. At this point, I had no idea what was happening. With much trepidation, I asked the trooper adjusting my mask. Excuse me, has something happened? Where were you? What were you doing? They don't answer a question with more questions. I was the one asking you. Ach ja, Abstimmung. Abstimmung für Spiel nach Higurashi. Dürft gerne abstimmen. I fell from a rope bridge way back in the mountains. I think I passed out on the riverbed. I don't actually know what day it is. Today is June 22nd, 1983. Wednesday. That surprised me. Satoko pushed me off the bridge on Tuesday, the 21st. That meant I'd been asleep on that riverbed for an entire day. Forgive me for asking again, but did something happen? Why is the SDF here? Is this a drill? Had my question been that difficult for him? None of the troopers would answer me. The one in the driver's seat talking on his own radio turned on the vehicles. He turned the dial and some broadcast station or another came in. I started to listen to the voice of a radio announcer I was familiar with. Was conducted at the Prime Minister's office. In regards to questions from the press that the SDF not responding to the disaster promptly was directly related to this unprecedented, unheard of catastrophe. Catastrophe? Spricht man bei der Katastrophe im Englischen das E mit? Oder ist das stumm? Catastrophe, glaube ich. Darfst nur einmal aufstimmen. Eigentlich ja. Wäre sonst unfair den anderen gegenüber. Katastrophe. Stumm.
Catastrophe.
Also das Internet sagt mit.
Catastrophe.
Das Internet sagt, das E wird ausgesprochen. Unheard of catastrophe. Chief Cabinet Secretary Okuno had this to say. Seriously. Ja. Aber ich bin mir sicher, vielleicht gibt es in manchen Teilen von Amerika oder sowas einen bestimmten Dialekt, wo sie das E nicht mitsprechen. And so, I believe that once the SDF received the dispatch order from the prefecture governor, they responded promptly. According to him, the SDF was prompt to respond to the crisis after receiving their orders. He implied that it was the prefecture's responsibility for taking too long to comprehend the situation. When did the governor who requested the SDF's dispatch actually became aware of the outbreak of such an unprecedented catastrophe? And did he not invite further damage because of the time lost before he sent the request for disaster relief? In other words, because of the bureaucracy. Was labern die da? We are waiting further investigation into the matter. That was Mr. Okada. Okada? Den kenne ich. Das ist wahrscheinlich ein anderer Okada. That was Mr. Okada, reporting from the Prime Minister's official residence. At this point, we can take another look at the political response following this disaster. Blah, blah. In the middle of the night. The fuck? Was ist das denn jetzt für Musik? Aber das ist schon wieder so übersteuert. Management. In the middle of the night between June 21st and June 22nd, a large-scale disaster broke out in Hinamizawa village, Shishibone. The details have not yet been investigated, but there was an eruption of volcanic gas from somewhere in the Hinamizawa area. The gas was relatively heavy, and as it spewed out, it began to flow. That flow went down along a small river and headed directly into Hinamizawa village. After a few hours, it had covered the entire region. It happened in the middle of the night, 2 to 4 a.m. Every home and household in the village was afflicted. Ganz ehrlich, die Musik hier würde ich bei einem alten Super Nintendo JRPG in der Stadt erwarten oder so, aber nicht in einer Visual Novel. Besonders nicht, wenn gerade davon geredet wird, dass Vulkanausbruch war und so weiter. Nein. With most of the residents asleep, it is thought that all died without noticing the crisis. Besonders nicht, wenn Musik, besonders nicht, wenn davon gesprochen wird, dass Leute sterben. The catastrophe striking in the middle of the night caused its detection to come too late, but there was still one small opportunity to have noticed it. 3 a.m. A news dealer's shop in Okinomiya sent a vehicle carrying the morning newspaper to its branch office in Hinamizawa. Usually the shop would be contacted upon the vehicle's arrival, but this morning that didn't happen. The news dealer's shop made repeated calls, but got no response. Die haben die Musik auch. Okay. The shopkeeper sent his eldest son to check on things, but they lost contact with him as well. It is extremely regrettable. If they had contacted the police or fire department at this point, it is highly possible the situation would have turned out more positively. At the very least, it's possible that a portion of the village might have been saved from tragic annihilation. 6 a.m. Residents in areas in the same region began continuously calling 119 to report the smell of rotten eggs, dizziness, nausea, and headaches. The fire department received the same reports, all from the same confined region. They speculated a truck loaded with chemicals may have gotten into an accident and reported it to the local police. 6:30 a.m. Contact was lost with a patrol car on duty in Hinamizawa area after the officer reported the smell of rotten eggs. The local police considered the possibility of a large-scale disaster involving highly lethal gas and reported it to the prefecture and prefectural police at 7:15 a.m. 8 a.m. The governor was traveling to nearby prefectures for inspection, so in accordance with regulations, the prefectural environmental disaster prevention chief was provisionally escalated to Director General and set up a disaster countermeasures office. However, without contacting the governor, the countermeasures came too late. As has recently been pointed out by citizens groups, his trip with honorary Diet members to inspect other prefectures was based solely on good relations, and it's rumored they preoccupied themselves with a drinking party. Sources closer to him claimed the governor had been drinking all night and had gone to sleep in a drunken state. Dummer governor. He was completely drunk when the environmental chief phoned him as well, and apparently he could not get him to pay any attention to the matter. And so it took about hour for the governor to sober up, gain an understanding of the situation and gather information. Though not as extreme as the governor's case, the environmental chief, who became Director General in the governor's absence, will likely also be questioned about his negligence. In addition, without any procedures in place on the prefecture side that predicted catastrophes this massive, they would always react too late, and that ended up being fatal. 9:12 AM. On the advice of the prefectural police, the governor requested a disaster relief mission from the SDF. By the time the chemical defense unit, equipped with protective equipment, arrived on the scene, 8 hours had already passed since the incident's outbreak. Whatever the case may be, it was unfortunate this happened while everyone was sleeping in the middle of the night. Had the same disaster occurred during the day, it likely would have been entirely different. All households in the Hinamizawa village region were wiped out. There were over 1,000 victims. The SDF is still confirming the situation on the ground, but their results are predicted to only increase that number. Here with us in studio today is Dr. Fujiwara, a professor at blah 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 university who is well acquainted with volcanic disasters. Doctor, can such a sudden and horrible outburst of poisonous gas actually happen? It isn't all unusual for this to happen right around craters, at least. Japan is a volcanic nation and so has many active volcanoes. There is always a danger of hazardous gas around any of these craters, and it's generally a rule among mountain climbers not to go near them. Does this mean the rotten egg smell that visited Hinamizawa village was the normal sort of gas from volcanic craters? Judging by how it smelled like rotten eggs, we think it was hydrogen sulfide, a gas seen particularly frequently in accidents compared to other volcanic gases. If it's dense, it becomes extremely dangerous. Hinamizawa village is very far away from the craters of any volcanoes. Can hydrosulfide be generated even from a place not close to a crater? I don't know all the details, so I can't say anything concrete, but in other countries there are records of gas eruptions due to magma buildup under hot springs. It's an extremely rare event, but it is possible for such a thing to happen even in a region not near craters. Thank you very much, Doctor. We appear to have an announcement from the Japan Defense Agency. Miss Morikawa, are you there?
Oh God. Yes, I am at the Japan Defense Agency. The agency has just made an announcement regarding the source of the Hinamizawa village's gas disaster. Analysis from the Ground Self-Defense Forces Department of Chemistry has found that the gas was a mixture of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide. Ms. Morikawa, do you know whether the gas is still erupting or spreading to nearby areas? According to the SDF's 9th Division, who are currently engaged in a rescue operation at Hinamizawa village, the gas density is steadily decreasing. They have announced that the damage will not spread. However, it does not change the fact that surrounding areas are still in danger, and that very strict observation must be maintained. That is Morikawa from the Japan Defense Agency. And now we have a report on the state of those who have been made to evacuate the Okamiya area. Shimoshinozaki Elementary School is one of the evacuation sites, and we currently have a report on... Wait! What? Inside the jeep, clambering and bouncing along the rough road, none answered my muttering question. An unprecedented catastrophe had destroyed Hinamizawa in a single night. Where was Hinamizawa village anyway? Someplace deep in the mountains, right? Names of places I'd heard about on the radio were always like that. They were all places I'd never heard of, much less knew the locations of. Wiped out? What does that mean? Don't they usually say how many died and how many were injured? How many people were alive? Where did everyone evacuate to? Eventually we came into view of Coach's clinic. For the first time I saw the flag of Japan hanging on a pole outside. Japan's circular sun hung down as though exhausted. Many SDF tents were set up in the clinic's big parking lot, and many strict security vehicles were parked there as well. When they saw the jeep coming, men in white clothing and gas masks, wie auch immer, came running out of the clinic, frantic, carrying a stretcher. You're going to be alright. How do you feel? Can you walk? Yes. Ow. And because of my ows, they forced me to lay in the stretcher anyway. People who seemed like doctors were looking at me and notifying others of my condition via radio. Multiple wounds, high possibility of fractures and internal damage, large laceration in the head. Pupils normal, but even without bleeding from the fundus, brain damage is still possible. And then, from the clinic entrance, people lying on stretchers were brought outside to replace me. Judging by the clothing, they were from Hinamizawa, and that's how I knew they were victims. They brought the stretchers in front of a truck. 2 troops, holding shoulders and legs, like some kind of baggage, picked them up and threw them into the truck. In the trunk of the truck, people's bodies piled in heaps. They were just like baggage, and that told me they were already nothing but shells. At that moment, I remembered all those colorful sacks filling the trunks, and them lined up in the schoolyard like a fish market. Hundreds of empty shells. Corpses. 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 Carpador. You jackasses! But don't just throw the victims in like that. They lived here. The troops carrying the sacks answered me with a humble salute. Well, okay. The world didn't need this insane version of Hinamizawa. My final wish. Again, it was granted. Dun, dun, dun. I didn't understand anything anymore. None of it mattered. I wished, I cursed, and then it happened the next day. Then please, tomorrow morning, let me die. That insane night, it's still going on. Please, please end it already. Hey, he's lost consciousness. Shout his name, quickly. My Barakun! Can you hear me? If you can hear me, just blink. My Barakun! My Barakun! My Barakun! Snake! Suddenly, the world didn't matter to me anymore. I wasn't interested in their cries. His breathing stopped. Get his respiratory tract open. Use CPR. Make him live. Damn it, damn it. No more dead people. Nobody deserves to die. Don't kill him. Don't kill him. I could hear the voice of a man crying and screaming in my ears. Nobody deserves to die. Those words came from his heart. They were so commonplace, and they soaked into my heart too. Maybe it was a mistake to take someone's life, even if it was to save Satoko. If this is the price I had to pay, this horrible tragedy, then this is a little much, Oishiro-sama. Why did you never punish me? Come to think of it, Satoko said something. Oishiro-sama's actual curse never goes for the target at first, but kills everyone they love before that. Oishiro-sama's curse. It was a convenient excuse I told myself at the very end, that it wasn't my curse that destroyed it, but Oyashiro-sama's. Given that I was in a stretcher, this next bit might have been obvious, but last of all, I realized one thing. Yeah. Today, I had not heard those footsteps following me, even once. And now, I was liberated. As the cries of the Higurashi I couldn't have been hearing filled my mind. The tearful ensemble was the only funeral march I had. Liberation. June 22nd, 1983. Ach, das ist wieder so Auto. Das müsst ihr wahrscheinlich lesen. Ja, das müsst ihr lesen. Oder selbst lesen, weil das geht automatisch weiter und da komme ich wahrscheinlich nicht hinterher. Tomitake, Suizid, Takano, Strangled to Death, Uishi, Rie, Furude, Village Gas Disaster in Memoriam List. Interessant. Satoko und ihr Onkel sind nicht gestorben. Da drin. Sondern die sind verschwunden. Keiichi Maebara attempted suicide. Was? Böse. Bei den anderen gab es aber keine Credits, oder? Ryukishi 07. Das ist der für das ganze Zeug verantwortlich ist und so weiter. Guter Mann. Ach ja! Ich habe letztens gehört, es soll irgendwann bald in naher oder ferner Zukunft einen neuen When They Cry Teil geben. Also kein Higurashi, kein Umineko, sondern was ganz Neues. Soll irgendwann rauskommen. 2003, später Sommer. An elderly couple living in Osaka Prefecture discovered a cassette tape while organizing the possessions of their son, who passed away 8 years ago. The son went missing when his fishing boat capsized in 1995. He was 47 at the time of his death. 8 years later, in 2003, they had begun to organize their son's remains in order to organize their minds, and came across the cassette tape in question. Wenn die Katze schreit. Nee. Oder? Moment, ich muss mal ganz kurz gucken. Moment. Das einmal. Also einmal hier. Einmal hier offizieller Tweet dazu und die Übersetzung. Grobe Übersetzung. Also 2017 wird angefangen, an der neuen When They Cry Serie zu arbeiten.
Habe ich um Erlaubnis gefragt? Natürlich. Hat nur keiner mitbekommen. Immer doch. So. From 1975 to 1989. The deceased had experience working as a journalist for a photography periodical, and this tape is thought to have been created during that time. The label on the tape read 28. November 1983, Keiji Maebara. It is thought the tape was recorded during an interview with Keiji Maebara, the only survivor of the Great Hinamizawa disaster that occurred in June of 1983. As the only person who lived through the disaster on the night of June 21st, shrouded in mystery, many interested parties attempted to question him, but he never once spoke physically to anyone in a public place. Therefore, the tape caused quite a stir, possibly being of extremely high value. Click. It's really hard to talk about stuff when I know I'm being recorded. Please, don't worry about it. Here, it won't be a problem if I do this, right? After this, the sound quality dramatically decreased. Im Manga ist zu sehen, dass Yeah, did he cover the recording device with something? Im Manga deckt der, glaube ich, das Aufnahmegerät mit einer Cappy ab oder so. Then let's get started. Here's my first question. Keiji-kun, where were you the night of the great disaster? I had gone behind the shrine, then took a path through the woods for a while. There's a rope bridge there, a little while before you get into the mountains. I fell from there and lost consciousness. Did this happen during the night of the disaster between the 21st and 22nd? No, it was the morning of the 21st on Tuesday, which means I woke up the afternoon of the next day. I think I was out for a day and a half. Why on earth were you there? I mean, I'm sure everyone wants to know, but the bridge you fell from that day, weekday, I might add, was quite far from both your house and the school, wasn't it? Speaking frankly, there are some who say you knew of the great disaster beforehand and fell from the rope bridge as you were trying to flee the village. This isn't a joke. Please don't be so arbitrary about this. I think it's a terrible thing to say too. Please don't be offended. Anyway, about the rope bridge you fell from. It was right here on the map, right? The rope bridge beyond the back of the shrine and through the path in the woods. Probably. I never went over there, so I can't say for sure. Ha 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 ha. I guess I just wanted to know why you were out somewhere you'd never been before on a weekday morning. And then, well, about the riverbed you fell unconscious on. Have you heard the rumors about that being impossible? Impossible. That word. Again. For a little while, Keiji Maebara mutters the word impossible several times. Why would it be impossible? You know how the volcanic gas originated in the Nigafuchi village, spawn, meine ich. Some scholars did some pretty delicate simulations and modeling and discovered something very interesting. The volcanic gas was heavier than the air, so it went along the ground, flowing into lower and lower places, kind of like what water does. And with Onagafuchi Swamp as its source, they were able to test how much time it would take for the gas to erupt and spread across the whole village. So, well, that riverbed you were unconscious on, the gas, it would have flowed down there. I don't really understand what you're getting at. In other words, if you were really passed out on that riverbed, you would have been in the middle of all the toxic gas that was spreading everywhere that night. That means there was no chance you could have been passed out there. Allow me to be a little more frank. I think that maybe you might be telling a lie. During the Great Disaster, you were hiding in a safe place, keeping an eye out for when the gas got thinner, then reappeared and were secured by the SDF. How about that? Is that right on the mark? For a short time, the journalist presses Keiichi Maebara further, in a teasing way, but all that can be heard a heavy sighs. Even if that was the case, I wouldn't be surprised at this point. What do you mean, you wouldn't be surprised? But was this recording really taken on Keiichi Maebara? Some harbor suspicion. You said it before, didn't you? That it was impossible. Impossible things happen in that Hinamizawa all the time. There are people who shouldn't be. There are people who shouldn't be exist. Das B muss raus. There are people who shouldn't exist. Dead people end up alive. It's not really that unusual. Never thought I, of all people, would be asked to prove that I was still alive when I was supposed to have died. The journalist and Keiichi Maebara both laughed for a while. To verify this authenticity, I had others in the Maebara family check tapes with his voice in it. However, the sound was not clear, and much time had passed, so the relatives I checked with couldn't remember what he sounded like. I was unable to gain positive proof it was actually Keiichi Maebara's voice. Alright then, I'll change the subject. What do you think of the debate about whether this disaster was the curse, the 5th year of the serial freak death incidents in Hinamizawa? I don't think it was. I was the curse that year, after all. Oder shouldn't be existing. Ja, genau. Aber das, was da stand, war definitiv nicht richtig. I was the curse that year, after all. Huh? What do you mean? What do I was just answering the question. Doubts also remain regarding the date 28. November written on the tape. The curse, well, you probably won't believe me when I tell you this. I was the one who caused it. I was the one who wished for the whole village to die, and it happened. What an exciting story. Exciting. I suppose you could call it that. After Maebara Keiichi's failed suicide attempt on a certain August day, 2 months after the disaster, he was diagnosed with a mental disorder and transported to a treatment facility. I was the one who killed Takano-san and Coach, and Oishi too. At the time, I had some kind of divine power. Yes, I suppose it was like footsteps. Footsteps? Wait, what's it supposed to mean? Have you never heard footsteps before? Tip, tap, click, clack, cook. The facility never allowed any news coverage, so it is extremely unlikely that the tape from the media dated after August 1983 would have had his voice on it. Today, when you're walking around, try stopping suddenly. Something interesting will happen. Anyway, if you hear an extra footstep, even though you'd already stopped walking, you'd better be careful, you know. Haha. Yes, I'll be careful. Haha. Is what I'm saying really that funny to you? However, the reporter had been criticized for his forceful methods of collecting data while he was active, so there's still a possibility that he broke into the facility and forced Keiichi Maebara to talk. You've been doing nothing but laugh in my face this whole time. You're just like a coach. You pretended to sympathize with me to listen to what I had to say, but your eyes are telling me you think I'm a lunatic. That's not true. Ha. No, I can tell. Your eyes are the same as Coach's.
Is this truly Keiji Maebara's voice? The authenticity of this recording is still wrapped in mystery. I never heard the footsteps again after that day, so I don't think I have that terrible power anymore. Perhaps right here, right now, I'll wish for you to die. I wish for your death, for saying all these unpleasant things. Yes, this time, why don't I decide how you die? Takano-san was burned to death, so let's go with the opposite, with water. I hope you drown and die, how's that? 15 years after this tape was created, the reporter, just as Keiji Maebara had predicted, died in an accident out on the sea. If I'm in top form like I was then, you'd die before tomorrow morning for sure. Now then, I wonder how many days it will take you to drown. Ha ha ha! You'd better be careful, you know. Don't go getting yourself killed by some stupid curse I put on you, okay? Ha 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 ha. Ha ha ha. Ha. The recording ends in the middle of Keiji Maebara's laughter. And Keiji Maebara. Late on the night of 6 November, 2 days after the interview, he suddenly died from a high fever, cause unknown. Records remain on the strange word he kept giving after pressing call button. An extra set of footsteps. Kinder lachen, sehr schön. Neues Szenario. Okay. Jo, das war Higurashi. Jovka, wäre eventuell nicht schlecht, wenn du nicht nur einzelne Worte schreiben könntest, sondern in ganzen Sätzen. Stört ein bisschen sehr. Ansonsten, ja. Jovka braucht eine Auszeit. Das nächste Kapitel ist schon lange fertig. Sorry, das habe ich schon ewig. Worauf wir aktuell ein bisschen warten, sind die Antwortkapitel. Also es kommt noch eins, nämlich Himatsubushi. Also Tatarigoroshi ist hiermit fertig. Himatsubushi kommt als nächstes. Das ist aber, glaube ich, von allen Kapiteln insgesamt das kürzeste Kapitel. Und das ist, glaube ich, einerseits nicht im Anime zu sehen. Heißt, die Leute, die nur den Anime kennen, das wird für die wahrscheinlich ein bisschen neu sein. Ich glaube zumindest. Das war im Anime nicht. Und ja, das ist ein bisschen anders als die letzten 3 Kapitel. Aber ja. Ja, das werden wir auf jeden Fall noch machen und danach, weiß nicht. Werden wir hauptsächlich, denke ich mal, warten, bis die mit den Antwortkapiteln fertig sind. Weil ich weiß ja nicht, wie die das machen, ob sie es weiterhin so machen, dass die jedes Kapitel einzeln rausbringen oder ob sie es wie mit Umineko machen, Bei Umineko haben sie ja zumindest die 4 Fragekapitel am Anfang auch in einem Pack auf einmal rausgebracht. Mal gucken. Mal schauen.